one of the newsletters in January of 2010, and it was called Europe's Deflationary Future. And I basically laid out a minimum of 10 years of a lost decade of Europe, and that's the very minimum. For Greece, the establishment economists are looking at about 12 years for Greece to reestablish its pre-recession GDP, which, of course, Greece is going on its 6th year of recession. My own estimates are optimistically 18 years and probably 20 years. So Europe is going to face many, many years of deflation. Now, the U.S. is not going to face that, and the reason why is because of the Federal Reserve has this ability to print money. And the reason why they have this ability to print money, and the only reason why, is because of the dollar-oil link. If they did not have that, then the U.S. would be in a similar situation. So, and that's why, by the way, the Federal Reserve is essentially bailing out Europe and the ECB, and they have been, because we're able to print this currency. And instead of experiencing a commensurate level of inflation in the U.S., we actually export inflation. And this is why, by the way, when the Economic Recovery Reinvestment Act was passed in February of 2009, when Obama entered office, that's why you saw the whole globe pass their economic stimulus, because if they did not do that, it would have caused inflation in those countries. So the point behind that is that when we see another economic stimulus package passed in the U.S., and we will, probably after the next election, I would say, once we see that, you're going to most likely see the globe pass another round of economic stimuli. And, of course, that has investment implications for a variety of reasons.
Now, part of your analysis of Europe and part of the reasons for this extended recession, from what I've seen, are due to population changes and the aging of the population and the decrease of children and people in the workforce. And I would tie that to this sudden demand by all of Europe's Jews and by all of Europe's bankers for open borders and more immigration. I mean, the bankers are basically demanding that Europe import 25 or 50 million people from Africa and Asia, and they're doing that as we speak. You know, is that part of a bailout program for the bankers? Do they see that as a do they really see that as a benefit to the European economy and as adding to the ability of Europe to avoid this extended recession?
It's part of the globalization plan. You know, I kind of look at it as a kind of a two-pronged mission. You've got the economic aspect, and then you have the societal aspect. So, in other words, you've got Wall Street involved for the economics and the globalist agenda, and then you also have the policymakers involved. So in other words, and I wrote about this in America's Financial Apocalypse. In America's case, I talked about how Washington for many years has allowed illegal aliens to enter the country as one of the means by which to help offset our declining living standards. So you've got that economic aspect, right? Now, you also have the societal aspect. As you know, this relates to multiculturalism, right? And, of course, multiculturalism ultimately relates to the economic aspect because the more you import, or actually they're providing financial incentives for individuals from the third world to come to these countries, right? They're not just saying, hey, you know, you should come and immigrate here. They're actually providing financial incentives, especially in Europe and Canada, huge financial incentives for people from the third world. I spoke to an individual at 7-Eleven the other night, and I asked him, I said, you know, how long did it take you to get your citizenship? He said, 6 months. And then I told him, I said, do you understand that is extraordinary? Do you understand that it takes people typically numerous years? He said, no, I didn't know that. I said, well, I happen to know a Filipino doctor. he and his family, for 20 years, he practiced medicine in America, in New Jersey, and he has his green card. That's all he has, and he just recently got it. He was shocked to hear this. And this individual happened to be from Ethiopia, and he told me, he said, you know what? I was making more money in Ethiopia. I was a researcher. I was respected. I was published in scientific journals. And I said, don't you understand what's going on? They're using you. They're using you as a slave to come here, and they're also using you as part of the agenda to diminish the white European political power. So, and he told me already, he'd already decided he's leaving. He's going back to Ethiopia. And I commended his decision. I said, hey, you know what? You've been here for 7 months. You realize this now. There's many people who stay here and think that they're going to improve their situation for many years, and they don't realize it. And I told him that, even in the Apocalypse book I wrote in 2006, I wrote in there that according to official data, America was second only to Mexico as far as developed nations in terms of the nation with the worst ability to improve your economic situation. Already, before this economic collapse, America was just above Mexico. People don't know this. Immigrants from around the world, they all want to come here, and they think that this is the land of opportunity. Let me tell you, America is the land of opportunity if you want to engage in criminal activity and fraud. That's where the opportunity is. That's it.
Well, the Jews sure as hell saw that opportunity in the 1920s and 30s and took full advantage of it.
Yeah, well, you just look at over the past few decades. You look at the progression of, for instance, you can look at Wall Street. One of the worst things, in my opinion, was allowing Main Street to trade stocks. Right? You basically get the media involved, and you get CNBC. You got these girls with their boobs popping out, right? And of course, that affects the pleasure center of the brain, causes people to have more of a gambling mentality. It causes people to gamble. They don't know what they're doing. It puts more dumb money into the market. And so you have people that don't know what they're doing. Wall Street's taking their money. And the whole system, Wall Street's all rigged. People don't understand. There's so much insider trading going on. But people are seeing this as a way. They're looking for any way to make money because there's no more stable job opportunities in this country. They're fading very fast. eBay. Remember back in the dot-com recession in 2001, everyone was going to eBay, becoming eBay sellers. Do you remember that?
Yes, they were.
Right?
People actually thought they could make careers out of it.
Of course, exactly. And what's happened over the past few decades with the lottos? Look now with the lottos. Everyone wants to gamble, right? All the casinos all over the place, right? We have a huge America is truly casino capitalism. This is the opportunity. Infomercials, right? You've got all these guys. You've got guys now telling you that you can become a millionaire flipping real estate. So this is, as you have fewer opportunities in this country because Washington has sold out to the corporate interests, job exportation continues at massive rates. There are becoming fewer and fewer opportunities for people in this country. And in my opinion, corporate America is guilty of economic treason. There's no doubt about that. In the past, several decades ago, there was a symbiotic relationship with American workers and corporate America. But that relationship was severed. And now it's all about corporate profits. And it has been for quite a while. We look now, we're in a depression. There's no doubt about that. And I'll be actually releasing a piece that over the next several days that gives facts, and I'll send you that early if you would like. It's called Evidence of a Depression, and it goes through and talks about all these facts. But the point is that we are in a depression, yet corporate profits are at record highs. Corporate profit margins are at record highs. How is this possible? With all of this unemployment, with all of this misery, yet corporate profits are at record highs. Corporate profit margins are at record highs. The reason why is because corporate America is hiring. They're just not hiring in America. The little hiring they are doing in America is for people to flip burgers. You see? This is why 90% of the jobs, and I wrote about this a few years ago, 90% of the jobs are not coming back. It was the same situation after the dot-com bubble imploded. Those jobs did not return because when these bubbles implode, it accelerates the effects of our unfair trade system. It accelerates those effects. And those effects of our unfair trade system are essentially exporting jobs and entire industries over to the developing world and the emerging world. So the benefactors of this globalization scam have been the corporate elite, the 5% of Americans, of course, mostly the 1%. And also, though, it's been the Chinese workers, the Indian workers, the Brazilian workers, all at the expense of the working and middle-class Americans. And this is a huge problem.
They'll never make middle-class consumers out of the Chinese and Brazilian workers. I'm convinced of that. It's all sheer exploitation, and that's their only purpose.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I don't think that they will ever make middle-class consumers out of, and that's the pipe dream that was sold in the 1970s. They'll never make middle-class consumers out of Brazilian and Chinese workers. I don't think it was ever their intention. It's all sheer exploitation.
I think that actually in Brazil, they're coming very close to that. The Brazilian consumers are tapped out. They're spending pretty well. China is different. Now, interestingly, the IMF continues, and it's not just the IMF. Whenever you hear something from the IMF, it's basically an echo from our whole establishment. So they continue to push the Chinese. If you look at their research, they keep saying, well, the Chinese consumers, they need to spend more. They need to generate more domestic demand, because actually the Chinese consumer over the past 15 years has actually they've decreased their spending. And so, of course, the Jewish bankers, anytime they invade a country, the first thing they get them to do is to spend more money, because that generates more money for corporate America, buy our goods, and then it taps their savings out so they can make money off the interest. And this is what happened to Europe. I knew this was going to happen. Once the Wall Street consumer credit markets were transported to Europe, this is what we've seen. And by the way, I don't think we've seen the full blow up of the consumer credit markets in Europe. I think we're going to see a massive blowout. I don't know when, maybe 20 years from now. But this was not a complete blowout of the consumer credit markets. It was largely, depending upon the country, due to real estate. But we haven't seen a complete implosion of the credit markets yet, because I don't think that they're mature enough.
I remember reading a Wall Street Journal article about 10 years ago which explained, or which really complained about the German people not borrowing and buying things on consumer credit. That they were crying about that. They were whining about it, that the German people bought everything with cash that they earned and didn't buy things on consumer credit to help the global economy.
Well, it's interesting. Of course, as I'm sure you're aware, Germany, up until recently, Germany actually progressed through this economic collapse quite well during post-financial crisis period after 2008. Germany surprised the establishment. They did very well. They recovered actually beyond pre-crisis levels in terms of the economic data. And one of the reasons why was because upon entry, or I guess the commencement of the euro in 1999, in general, the Southeast area European nations, they were spending all this money. They had access to credit. Of course, in Europe, prior to the euro, you couldn't buy a house on mortgage. You had to have cash for the most part.